It's nobody's favorite time of the week again. It's Ask a Rabbi Wednesday.
Well, at least your daughter's favorite.
It is your favorite time?
Yes.
All right, so I had actually two questions from one of my patients at work today. I can't, generally, I'll name people's names when they're asking questions, but because the HIPAA laws and so forth, I'm not going to mention any names. But he brought up two seemingly non-connected questions, and actually quite, I found some connections with them. Now, his first question was rather outlandish and kind of silly, though there's plenty of silly stuff and misinformation around. He said some kind of a claim. He asked if there is some kind of a bone behind the ears that signifies someone being Jewish. He said he read something on the internet that there is some kind of a bone behind the ears that only Jewish people have, and that this is a sign that someone is Jewish or not. They tell I remember there was a cartoon I was watching, and there was a girl, she was talking to her boyfriend, and she said, how do I know if I'm Jewish or not? And he asked her, well, are you Jewish? She said, no. He said, well, there you go. Now, Judaism is a religion. It's not a race. It has nothing to do with any aspect of DNA. Now, certain tribal affiliations, which are passed from father to son, those would have to do with DNA. But you could be a Jew without being a member of any of those tribes. Anyone from any race can convert to Judaism. He said he read something on the internet. There's plenty of stuff on the internet. I don't know. I didn't even bother to Google it because it's just so ridiculous. However, it did remind me of a very well-known medrash that said that there is a certain bone which is in the back of the neck, or somewhere in that area, called the luz bone, and the luz never disintegrates. It lasts forever, and from there will be resurrected by the resurrection of the dead. And the reason for that is because this bone only receives its nourishment on Saturday night by the Lava Malka, when we eat Motzei Shabbos in honor of the leaving Sabbath. And since death and mortality came into the world because of the original sin of Adam and Eve, which took place on a Friday, that particular bone received no nourishment from it, and so therefore is still in its original pre-fall state and could never be destroyed physically, and will from there regenerate our bodies for the resurrection, whether it means the DNA or whatever, or something supernatural. Now, and it's a medrash, whatever it is. And the second question was, I had given him an art school. They have a nice Pirkei Avos, little pocket Pirkei Avos that's benching in the back. And in the introduction to the benching there, it said something that, by reciting Birkas Hamazon, as we're commanded to in the Torah, it says, you should eat and be satisfied, and bless the Lord your God for the good land which He gave you. So, the commentators there said that this teaches us that we're supposed to recognize that it's not by the work that we do that we earn our living, but rather it's all by the blessings of God. Now, he said that seems to be a contradiction to what we read in Genesis. It says, by the sweat of your brow you should eat bread. I asked this fellow, I said, I told him, I said, we understand that by the sweat of your brow you should eat bread to be a curse which came from the original sin, and not really separate from where we get our livelihood. Rabbi Nachman Breslov, one of my dear friends, pointed out this from Rabbi Breslov recently, that Rabbi Nachman Breslov said that we don't work to make a living. God gives us our livelihood, and we only have to go to work to make a tikkun, to make a spiritual spiritual rectification, to fix our souls, to fix other people's souls, but has nothing to do with the work we do. Has nothing to do with the money we make. The money we make comes from God. Now, but this concept of by the sweating of brow you should eat bread means it's a curse. I turned to this fellow. I said, he's in the institution. I said, do you have to work to make a living to eat? He said, no. I said, well, I guess you're exempt from that curse. So how do we bring these two together? So really, essentially, what we realize from this, and what we have to recognize, is the idea of the value of our work, and also the afterlife, the whole concept of the afterlife. So let's go through a few ideas. Not get exactly, how we discussed it, but it really was a gift from God. All of these ideas that we examined through this. Now, really, essentially, everything that we get comes from the grace of God. You hear other religions, they say that they're based on grace, and they criticize us for being legalistic and are not being based on faith. It's really quite the opposite. Now, we don't have faith in their idolatrous ideas, but we certainly put all of our faith in God. And really, it's not only our spiritual lives that is an issue of grace, but it's our physical lives that come by the grace of God. And really, when you look in Scripture, certainly in the Hebrew Scriptures, there is no discussion of an afterlife, just very little. As the discussion is more or less about that, when we serve God, we are obedient to God's laws, we're blessed in this world, and disobedience leads to curses in this world. There's no discussion of an afterlife. Now, we do believe in an afterlife. We certainly believe in an afterlife. But why, when the Bible doesn't talk about it? Now, but then we see from that it's not that, you go to work and you're going to be blessed. It's that God is going to bless the work of your hands because of your obedience to His Word. Now, the problem with this, and the reason why we believe in an afterlife, one of many reasons, could be demonstrated as follows. There are two places in the Bible where it says that if you keep these commandments, you will be blessed with a long life. One is in the Ten Commandments, honor thy mother and father, so you should have a long life. And the other one is that in Deuteronomy, it says if you come across a mother bird sitting on eggs or chicks and you want to take the eggs for yourself, you can't take advantage of the mother's motherly instinct, but rather you have to shoo away the mother bird, and then you can take the eggs or the chicks or whatever for yourself. And so therefore, and then you'll be blessed with a long life. Now, there's a story in the Talmud that there was a father, he told his son to climb up a ladder to go shoo away the mother bird and take the eggs. And he said, wait a sec. And while he was, so these are two things the Bible promises long life for. And what happened? He climbed up the ladder. He was honoring his father, and he's shooing away the mother bird. Both the things that the Bible promises long life. And what happens? He fell off the ladder and died. Now, how's that? Isn't he promised long life by God? And so the answer is that actually we see in the Talmud that one of the great rabbis actually lost his faith after hearing about this or seeing this, according to some opinions, and he became a great heretic after that. So what do we have with this this incident? Is the answer which the sages give is that then you have a life that's fully long and in the afterlife. Hold on one second. Can you go? Sally's by Bina, right? Go get her. So therefore we learn that there's an afterlife because we see that things aren't perfect. We see that that good people suffer and bad people prosper. And so if we believe that there is justice, the justice has to be meted out somewhere, and so it's meted out in the afterlife. So that's where you have the answer to that, is that really, and then that's how we discuss the issues of the afterlife and God's grace on us and so forth. But it's really a gift that God gives us to be able to enjoy an afterlife, to be able to have all these blessings. So it's really a tremendous thing. Now,
it's a fan.
So therefore, it's not just this. It's not just the afterlife that we need to rely on God's grace. It's this life now. And the question is really, and that's the whole idea behind afterlife. All these things.
That's mine.
We believe in the afterlife. We know that there is blessings and so forth. What is it all about? Now, we can take a deeper look at it, and really, in a sense, we find that it could be that heaven and hell are really the same place, because it's based on our perception of the afterlife, and we actually experienced this firsthand while we were discussing this. Did you say thank you to Teacher Andy? You said thank you to? Meaning? Meaning that if a person, his whole life was spiritual and he's already living a heavenly life here on earth, so then the transition from earth to heaven will be quite easy. Somebody's door is not closed. Somebody's door is not closed. It's meaning the transition then. Nope, it's Sally's door. From earth to heaven would be very easy because...
Sally, it's fine.
No, it's not fine.
No, this.
So then the transition is quite easy because they were living a spiritual life. But if they are mired in physicality, then if they're mired in physicality, so then it's difficult to leave this life, and we had a demonstration of that actually, because while we were there, we were sitting and the lights were off, and there was light from the outside, just windows in the room, and then we were sitting like that for 40 minutes with the lights off. And then someone came in and turned the lights on, and it caused a little bit of pain in the eyes to see the lights turn on. This patient of mine said it's torture, that light. But the thing is, there's nothing bad about the light. It's how we perceive it, and it's our eyes adjusted to it. The Jewish tradition does not teach eternal damnation. It teaches that someone, if they might have to go to hell for a few minutes, or they might go for up to a year, but more than that, generally, they're not going. So what does it mean? And I think it means it's like how our eyes adjust to the light, and we realize that it's really good. It's the same thing. That pain, it depends on how mired we are in the darkness of this world, that when we're exposed to that light, there's no change in the light. The light is the same. But when we see that light, well, how long does it take for us to adjust the light? If we've been living in the light our whole lives, so then there's no change in the light. But if we've been living in darkness and then we come into the light is difficult. It reminds me, there was a cartoon show, a rather vulgar show, but it's seen in a previous during a previous lifestyle, I guess, where Saddam Hussein, he died and he went to hell. And then they said, you know what? And in the end, they decided they couldn't handle him in hell anymore, and they sent him to heaven. Now, for Saddam Hussein, and then whatever, so he gets to heaven, and everyone's so friendly and nice and everything, and they're so moral and ethical. And for Saddam Hussein, hell was where he wanted to be. He was enjoying himself in hell. It was only when he went to heaven that was torture for him, and that was his hell. And really, essentially, there really isn't a difference between these two places. It's all how do we perceive heaven and hell. Now, that's the message, I think, really, is that, can we stand alive? If we are so mired in this world, so then we can't enjoy the spiritual things. But if we're already living in a spiritual way, so then there's no pain. It reminds me of the story of the Rebbe Zusha, Heilige Rebbe Zusha, that the Afla and the Rebbe Shmelke, the two brothers, they went to the Maggid, to the Rebbe Bear, and they asked him, how do we understand the Mishnah in Brachos that says that that you should, just the way that you thank God for good things, you have to thank God for the bad things. And they're like, how do you do that? The same way? So then the Maggid said, I can't understand. I can't explain this to you. You have to go to my student, the Rebbe Zusha, and you'll learn it there. And they go to Anapoli, and they go to the Rebbe Zusha, and they see he's living in a very, very painful life. And they asked him the question, and they said, the Rebbe said you should ask Zusha this question. He always spoke to himself in the third person. Zusha, everything God has given to Zusha has only been good. Meaning, how do we experience things? There can be folks who they're living lives of riches and they're miserable, and there could be people in tremendous poverty who are very, very happy and rich, and they're samech b'chelkam. They're actually wealthier because they enjoy what they have and they understand the spiritual gifts of it all. Really, essentially, wealth is not a curse. Wealth is, and it's not wealth or poverty that's the curse or the blessing. Either way, it's how do we deal with it. They're both different types of challenges, and then how do we do it? Do we use our wealth for... I went and told this over to another patient, and we said, you would think, I mentioned how in another tradition, another religion, they said it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into heaven. And this one woman who was from that tradition, she said, you would think it's the opposite. The rich people, they could buy all the Bibles they want, and they could do whatever they, and they can give charity and all these things. So again, the issue is, how do we do it? If a person could be poor, but he could be, attached to his material items, and then when he has to leave them, it's painful. But a person could, so then he's also the same materialistic problems. So the answer is that we have to find the balance. We can enjoy this world as a spiritual pursuit. And I explained that, something that I say often, that essentially, let's say you have a job and they give you a comfortable chair, a nice air conditioner, a nice desk, and they give you a high-speed internet and all these things. That's not your paycheck for the job. That's so you do your job more efficiently. The paycheck is what you get at the end of the month. But so too, we can enjoy this world. It doesn't, being blessed in this world isn't a sign that you're wicked necessarily, because if you use it for positive reasons, you use it for good, so then it is a good thing. But it's not. This is not your reward. Meaning, if you take it as your reward, then you have nothing left. But the same thing. If that person, he has the high-speed internet in his office, and he's not on his break, he's during work time, and he has work to do. It's not like he doesn't have anything to do, and instead he just goes and he has to he just wastes time on looking at silly things instead of doing his job. So then his boss could rightly say, I'm going to dock your pay for that because you already got your pay. You used the tools that I gave you to serve me, to do your job for your own pleasure, and you wasted them instead of doing your job. So what's so then on the other hand, if you use it to do your job, and then you do your job and you get paid, it's the same thing in this world. If God gives us blessings, if we use those blessings to serve Him, to do mitzvahs, to be charitable, it's really more than charity, it's really justice. Tzedakah means justice. If we serve God with the blessings that He gave us, if we make them into all these material things into something spiritual, and if we're cognizant of God while we do this and thank God constantly for all these blessings, so then we're not using up what we have waiting for us in the next world. But if we don't, so we're using it up. But really, you can have the best of both worlds, because if they say if you love your job, you'll never work a day in your life. Meaning, you're doing your job and you're getting paid for it, and you're doing a good job at your job, and you love it. That's really what Chazal say. You're zochel l'shtei shulchanos. You're worthy to two tables. You enjoy this world and the next world, and you're really enjoying the next world now. Meaning that you realize with all of these things that you recognize God and you praise Him and you enjoy it. You don't see your religious duties or all these things as a burden, but rather as a source of joy. You don't see going to pray and study as a burdensome obligation, but a joyful one, and so therefore, and in that you don't lose, you actually gain even more reward from that, and that's really the highest level, is to have your cake and eat it too, to recognize the blessings that God gives you, utilize them for godly and spiritual purposes, and beyond that, to enjoy doing it as you do it. So then you have it all together. Then you really, really are enjoying this world, and you're already living a godly, heavenly life. So then when it's time to shuffle off this mortal coil, you're doing so in a joyful way, and it's not, there's no pain in it. And so if you're already in heaven, it's just a very easy transition to go from one room to the next. But if it's painful, it's painful. And so that's why I think that brings all of these things together. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed. I'm sorry I spoke so long. If you like our videos, please like, share. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook as well. And if you have any questions for the future videos that you'd like us to address, please put them in the comments below. And please, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe and share with your friends as well if you enjoyed our videos. Thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you again next week. All right, God bless you. Be well.